However, for 21 years prior to that appointment, Professor Blatti held the position of Associate Director of Bands and Conductor of the OSU Symphonic Band. This summer, he will bring to a conclusion some 42 years in education, 27 of which were spent here at Ohio State. At this time, I would like to take a moment to recognize any symphonic band alumni in the audience who played under Professor Blatti. Would you please stand and be recognized? Tonight, Professor Blatti will conduct two of his favorite pieces for band with the 2016 edition of the OSU Symphonic Band. And without further ado, please welcome to the podium my dear friend and colleague, Professor Richard Blatti.
It's natural that you think of your mentors. When David was gracious enough to ask me to conduct tonight, I wanted to pick two pieces that would remind me and remind everyone here of the great debt we owe all of our teachers. The fact that we stood on their shoulders to create a career is a testament to the way music education works. I want to talk about the second piece first, because that embodies the life and spirit of my first mentor, my first real mentor, John P. Painter, who was the second university band director at Northwestern in the history of the school. The piece was written for the first director of bands at Northwestern, Glenn Cliff Bainham, his mentor. And the piece was written with Northwestern in mind by Glenn Cliff Bainham's pal, Carl King. We're going to do the march the way John liked to do it, which is not quite the way it's printed. That's just the way John was about everything. John had an inimitable spirit and was a genius in his own right. The first piece we'd like to play for you is dedicated tonight to my last mentor. Donald Harris was the distinguished dean of the College of the Arts for many years, and he brought me to Ohio State in '89. Don was an incredible person, teacher, administrator, and a world-known composer. And he struggled in the last few years of his life with his health, and he passed away only 2 weeks ago. On this stage on May 1st, we will dedicate a ceremony to him in his name. But I thought Nimrod was a fitting piece to pay tribute to him, because it's about a friendship and a relationship that Edward Elgar enjoyed with his publisher and his profoundly deep friend, Jaeger. And Jaeger is the German word for hunter. Hunter is the reference to Nimrod and why this movement gets its name. I hope that all of you have had a teacher or two like the two we're dedicating these pieces to tonight. And I hope at some point in your life you have said thanks to them, or can still say thanks to them, because we owe the world of teaching a larger debt than I think our society often acknowledges. It's been a sheer delight to be with these people behind me and to be here at Ohio State for 27 years. Thank you so much for coming.
wanted to take a moment to let everyone know that there is a reception immediately following the concert. I want to thank Tau Beta Sigma, Kappa Kappa Psi, Sigma Alpha Iota, Phi Mu Alpha, the Flute Studio, the Graduate Music Student Association, and the collegiate chapter of NAFME, collegiate chapter of National Association of Music Education, all came together to put a reception on. So here's the plan. Russ Mickelson is going to take Rick up to the mezzanine to visit with him. So you all can visit Rick up there, and we're going to have the cake down in the lobby because it's all about traffic control, okay? And normally, I'm an old-fashioned guy, and I believe in ending this concert year with the school song, and I should do it, but I think this guy's going to do it. So here we go.